Hello, everybody. Can you all see and hear me? If you can't, you're probably not going to respond. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, a sea of yeses. Fantastic. How wonderful. I always wonder about the technology at the beginning of a call like this. So, wow, we have a wonderful full room of people. How superb is this? Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us this evening. And we have people still filtering in, so I'll give it another minute or two. I'll fill the space with some hopefully useful chat, and then we'll get rolling. Little piece of housekeeping at the beginning. I would imagine that as we go through the course of this webinar, there may be questions that arise for you, things that may come into your mind, things that may come up that you'd like to ask. We're going to have the space at the end for a Q&A session. So if between now and then, if a question does come up, just either record it for yourself, or you'll see at the bottom of the screen, you have a chat option and you have a Q&A option. So just pop your questions in the Q&A option. And when we get to that section at the end of the webinar, myself and the team will go through those with you. So you know that every query gets honored, but we do have a lot to cover this evening. So we want to be as efficient as is possible. Now, I've seen a big explosion in the group. We have a very international group here today, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm curious, out of everybody in the room right now, who amongst you has read Björn's book, Rediscovering You Are God? If you can just put a yes or a no in the chat for me, just to give me a little bit of a... Fantastic. It's rather exhilarating when you ask you a question. There's just this flurry of energy on the right-hand side, like, wow, fantastic. Okay, so we've got a good mix in there, a good mix, fantastic. Well, I will touch a bit upon this later as well, later in this conversation, but just to let you know, whether you have read the book or whether you have not read the book, you're still going to be able to extract fantastic value from what we're covering this evening, or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. But I would suggest that if you have read the book, that after this conversation, you'll probably going to go back to it. And if you haven't yet read the book, then I would imagine that this is probably going to inspire you to move in that direction. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the substance of this conversation today. So firstly, who am I? It's an interesting question, bit of an existential one, but we won't go too deep into that right now. Who am I and what is the role that I'm playing in this conversation? My name is Nick. I am a member of the God Book team, very good friends with Dr. Björn Lenz for a long time now. And my role in the team is really to support anything that you guys need, anything that you guys require, both in the setting of this conversation, but then also moving forward in whatever way that might look like. So for this call and in the future, if you ever need anything, you can always reach out to myself and the team. And I'm always happy to help. Why is that? Because I see the transformation that's possible when you really embody the material that Björn is bringing through. And I can see that in my life. I can see that in the life of the people around me. And I'm inspired beyond measure to spread this as far and wide as I can. I've seen someone just say they wish my volume was a little higher. Maybe I can just speak a little bit louder. I don't want to seem like I'm shouting at you though. So rather than doing that, I will just slide my laptop ever so slightly closer. So Evan, I hope that is okay. So this is me, Nick. Nice to meet you. I'm here to support and serve you. We have another member of our wonderful God Book team on this call as well, Mr. Damir Mujic. How are you, good sir? Would you like to say some words to our family?
Hello, everybody. I won't say too much. Nick is here to speak. I'm here to take care about the technical side, mostly of this webinar. And I'm very happy to see such a number of attendees. And yes, looking forward to see how this will unfold for everybody.
Beautiful. Yes, Damir is like that hidden hand in the background that makes sure everything runs smoothly. Now, I've put you on a pedestal there, Damir, because everyone's expecting it to run smoothly now, so no pressure. So that's myself and Damir here, happy to help for anything that you may require. But there is another member of the team on this call. Now, guys, I'm not sure if you know about this guy, if you've ever met this guy, or even heard of him. His name's Björn. He's an interesting chap for sure. And of course, he's the kind of reason we're coming together this evening. So Björn, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I am excited. I am a little bit scared. I'm happy. And I'm a little bit scared because I can feel there's something in the air. Like if you're coming very close to an electric fence and you can just see that, feel that something might hit you or not. And I have a little inkling why this is. Like us coming together this evening is really, really special from my point of view. Not that I could point at something that is going to happen, but I can feel there's a lot of intention coming together. And I am full of gratitude to each and every one of you who is here live in this session, and to everybody who is watching the recording. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I can feel it is precious and interesting. So feel for yourself. Can you feel the electricity in the air? If you can, wonderful. If you can't, wonderful.
Fantastic. It's a win-win situation for us all. Yes, so it's a wonderful privilege to work with Björn. There are many people in this room who will have either been with us on one of the transformational retreats that we organize, or would have done one-on-one work with Björn, or any number of the phenomenal classes that he holds. And if you have spent time with Björn, you'll realize that there's magic in the air. Things happen in this presence. And, you know, one of the most phenomenal pieces of magic that I would say that I've observed in the journey of knowing Björn is the creation of the book, Rediscovering You Are God, because as I say, what's held within the pages of that book has the capacity and the potential to liberate a person, whatever blockages or stickiness they feel they're having in their life. And as I'm sure you can imagine, when we're planning stuff like this and when we're working on new projects and ways to share the message, some of the conversations we have behind the scenes are fantastic. And we often sit there and go into a big philosophical conversation about things, and we're like, wow, that's incredible. And then afterwards we think, no, we should have recorded that. Or it would have been great if there were other people with us. This would be wonderful. This is the kind of energy we want to bring in to this webinar this evening. And when we were discussing, excuse me, when we were discussing what we would cover, what we really, really want to share, where the gold is, I asked Björn the question, why would somebody wish to rediscover themselves as God? Like, what is the point of that? Like, on the surface, we hear it, we think, oh, that sounds fun. But really, in practice, when it comes down to it, like, why would we want to? Now, he came with 3 answers, and I'm going to briefly summarize these answers for you, and then we're going to spend a bit of time going deeply into what each one of them means. So the 3 answers he gave to the question, why would a person want to rediscover themselves as God? The first answer was in and around discovery, because in rediscovering yourself as God, what happens is you connect to the limitless and potent potential that you have. And that sounds quite delicious. The second point he referenced, the second answer he gave, was that connection to your limitless and potent potential, let's say, is a prerequisite of moving into the state where you become a conscious reality creator, where your experience of life is a masterpiece created by you, every brushstroke on the canvas being a consciously made decision by you. Sounds quite wonderful. And the third answer he gave was really in and around contribution, because he said that, you know, once you rediscover yourself as God, then your capacity to contribute to the entirety of humanity in the highest way is exponentially enhanced. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, those answers blew my mind in the moment, and I didn't really know what else to say apart from to sit back in a point of reflection and think, wow, that sounds outstanding. That's not what I'm going to do now. That wouldn't be the best structure for a webinar, let's be honest. But what I really want to do is I want to dig into those 3 qualities of what it is to rediscover your God, the reconnection to your potent and limitless self, being able to embody yourself as a conscious reality creator, and understanding what it takes to be able to contribute to humanity at the highest possible level. So if we have a look at those points, let's pick the first point. The fact that rediscovering you are God connects you to your potent and limitless nature. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? Potent and limitless nature. And it sounds like a place that many people would want to get to. And Björn, I'm curious in this moment. If you look back through the course of your life, do you feel that you have always had a connection to that? Or do you feel that there was a point in life where in which you would describe yourself as perhaps impotent or limited, somewhere down that end of the spectrum? And if so, what was the transition for you? What was the transition? What happened? How did that unfold? And what can you say about it?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the wonderful question. How is my sound? Am I loud enough, or do I have to do anything else? Great.
No,
It's
sounds
great.
perfect.
Perfect. So that question brings me back into a time of my life where I wasn't very happy. It was now 8 years ago or something. I was entrepreneur. had started a business that was running okay, in the sense of I was working 60-hour weeks and it was doing fine. I had a family with 2 kids. Like from the outside, I was living the magic life, but from the inside, it wasn't that. When I was at work, I was wishing that I would be home because I didn't find fulfillment in my work, even though it was successful. Like I was one of the 2 bosses, whatever that means. And when I was at home, I was so preoccupied with business that I wished that I was at work. So I was always wishing to be somewhere else, under a lot of pressure. Well, pressure of my mind, basically, because nothing was really bad or happening. And I remember very clearly one day where I was walking down the stairs to my home office, and I basically wished to get a heart attack so that the people around me, like the one that I founded the business with, and my wife at the time, would realize how much I'm suffering, how much I'm giving my best, and how much I feel that I'm failing, actually. And it was around that time that somebody entered my life. Somebody I proudly call my Yoda today, because he basically is the one that opened my eyes. And it was a very strange character. The name is Peter Sage, because I know few of you are familiar with that person. And with him, I went to a business school because, of course, I thought, well, if the business would run better, then I could be happy, right? Yet that business school wasn't about business. It was a lot about mindset. And there I was introduced to concepts that were completely alien to me at that time. Like I think he first used the term mirror reality, even though he didn't very much define it. But I can remember the picture of the slide where there was a cat sitting in front of a mirror, and the mirror image was a lion. And he introduced something else, something that he called quantum alignment recipe. Like he was talking about that reality is not really real, and that atoms are mostly empty space, and that we can use our mind in order to create something else. PETER. Yes, thank you, Damir. And this quantum alignment recipe, like I thought, well, that's crazy. I was a scientist. I was a mathematician. I knew how the world works. So that certainly doesn't work. But I was curious because the event, overall, the people that I met there, it had made an impression on me. Had made an impression on me in the sense of something was different about this crowd. Usually I was very introverted, and at that event, I enjoyed spending time with people, for example, something that had never happened before. So I gave it a shot. I was already meditating at that time, because meditating was scientifically proven to have beneficial effects, and I was into like hacking, self-hacking. And I was doing 15 minutes of transcendental meditation anyway, so I just added 5 minutes of gratitude. Gratitude towards things that already are in my life. Simple things like a glass of water or breath or my children. Well, my children are not simple things maybe, but something that is normal, let's say. Something specific that might have happened, but also things that had not happened yet. Like in that moment, I focused on business and I basically saw very precise business goals unfold in front of my inner eye. And I just felt lots of gratitude towards, yeah, so many customers, so many leads, so much money, things like that. And what happened next just blew my mind. Over the course of the next 1 to 2 months, we were swamped by customers. Before that time, we were always chasing journalists in the sense of, hey, our topic is interesting. Could you please write about us? And suddenly journalists started calling us, asking if they may be allowed to interview us on our interesting topic. And like craziness happened. Suddenly, it was like the business was turned on. Like somebody flipped the switch and it moved. And it was a very interesting time for me because I couldn't believe it, but I also couldn't believe it's a coincidence. And it was a strange situation because after a while, I realized the most important time of my day is 5 minutes after my transcendental meditation where I do gratitude. And I say I couldn't at the moment in time. I had the urge to share it with somebody, but I couldn't, not with my business partner, not with anybody, because I thought, well, they would think I'm crazy. I'm taking myself way too important, like doing some spiritual work in the morning and reality shifts. That is impossible. But what changed was my curiosity was taken. And when I'm curious about something, I like to go hard and explore. So I learned more about this manifestation things, more from Peter Sage. I went to South Africa for a business trip, learning more techniques and testing them from a completely playful point of view, in the sense of what is very, very unlikely, but is important to me somehow, so that I can bring up the energy to include it into my routine. And everything happened. Everything happened in the most unlikely ways. And if you're curious about more stories, we can go into that in the Q&A. Because right now I'm concerned about those who are more interested in content that we don't take up too much of the time. But this basically led to me for the next 7 years to find everything that I could, to find out everything that I could about how this reality works, why we are here, who we are, what we are, and what kind of tools we can use in this reality or beyond this reality in order to create our reality consciously. And that's what I'm talking about today, I guess.
Yes, maybe in that space. Who knows? Who knows where we're going to go? We're going to wander our way through with fun and joy. Beautiful. I love that because I love the very pragmatic scientific approach to this. You had presented with wonder and wow, this sounds amazing. Look at Alan Watts just appearing above my hand. Like I've got Alan Watts at my fingertips. Alan Watts at my fingertips. Haha. Yeah, I love the pragmatic scientific approach here. Like it's so you, it's unreal. Like, and I can imagine you going through it. What makes me smile about that story is I imagine you, even though you're going through it, there's still being some pessimism as to the fact it could work. And then when things started to happen, I can just imagine the wow look on your face as you started to shift reality from a different way. Magnificent. And
it actually was, it scared me in the sense of like, what happens to a human being that is in that situation? Like, what? I have so much power. I can move things with my mind. Like, it wasn't so much amazement, it was also scary.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So you were like a child with an excessively powerful tool that you had just discovered, and all of a sudden your reality changed. The way you understood the world shifted in those moments. Magnificent. Now, I have another question, which naturally follows on in my mind from this, because we opened this by talking about this part we're talking about here is when we rediscover ourselves as God, we connect to potent and limitless aspects of ourselves. Now, potent and limitless are strong words. So I'm curious, having walked this path and being the embodiment of this now, is it truly limitless, the potential that you have and the energy that you connect to? Is it truly potent? Or are we all destined at some point, if we play this game, to reach a natural limit?
Yes, what a wonderful question. Well, our limitlessness, what a wonderful word. What our limitlessness is only limited by our willingness to receive. So, and the challenge with that is, as soon as we lose ourselves, as soon as we're not connected anymore to our spiritual self, to our God self, to our higher self, our receiving goes down, especially our receiving from beyond this reality, from the other realm. So what does that mean? As long as you're aligned, as long as you are following your heart, how far you can go is only limited by what you're willing to receive, by what you believe yourself to be potent of, what you believe, what you can allow yourself to be. Let me give you an example. Let me start with a silly example. I personally would like to be able to fly. And I just have to buy a ticket and I can fly to Tenerife to visit my beautiful friend, for example. But it would also be nice to just be able to fly for fun. And especially in youth, as a child, I had a lot of dreams where I could fly, where I can tune back into the visceral experience of, like, I did some energetic movements and my body flew and I could just move from tree to tree basically. And it was just something that moved me upwards. And if I did nothing, I was always slowly degrading. So if I wish to fly in order to impress people, if I would try to practice flying so that I can finally show off that I can, how much is that aligned? Like, immediately there's no power, there's no possibility. But if I imagine myself to be sitting in the Himalayas where nobody's around, practicing flying, tuning back into that feeling, I think that might be possible. It might be, probably take 7 years of hard meditation. Like, if you search Google properly, you will find some videos that are very convincing of people meditating and convincing their atoms that they are lighter than air. But the thing is, they don't care. It's just something that happens. It's just a mind game for them. If they are trying to prove I'm cool, I can do this thing, the power to control their atoms would immediately diminish. And now, let that go. All the parts of you that are saying, well, that's a bullshit story. It is. But look at, for example, if we choose to make $1 million, for example, it's something that happens. Like, if I would ask you who would like to have $1 million, most of you would probably say, yeah, well, I would take it. But if you basically set that as a goal of your manifestation, is that aligned? Is it powerful? And here the answer is it doesn't depend on the content. It happens on the context. If you wish to have $1 million so that you can finally prove to your parents that you're good enough, If you wish to have $1 million so that you can finally relax because now you know that you're safe, if you wish to have $1 million so that you can prove to your friends that you are better than them, or anything in that realm, no power, nothing's going to happen. But if you have a project, for example, that is coming from your heart, let's say a movement that is trying to change something for kids in Africa. It doesn't have to be in this officially we are good, we are doing good things vibe. It can just be your heart. If your vision is just to bring your art out there and you just happen to require a lot of money in order to produce your art because you chose a field of art that is very expensive. Like, it doesn't have to be officially good, but if your heart is driving a desire, and that just requires a lot of finances, you have all the power to acquire that. You have all the power to manifest that. You have all the power to pull that into reality. So yes, there is no limit as long as you're aligned.
Beautiful final words to end it. There is no limit as long as you are aligned. And it's a perfect moment to announce now that we actually are launching the 7-year Come and Levitate with Björn retreats. No, I'm joking. That's one for the future. But no, more seriously, listening to receiving you there, I'm left with a kind of broad question. Let's see how you can play with this one. So, what are we?
What are we? Well, from my point of view, we are God, playing a human game. Does that mean in this moment I have my God experience on? No. In this moment, I'm just like you, person sitting in front of the computer. Happens to be me speaking, you listening, but there is no difference. But we are consciousness. We are, the whole of consciousness is ingrained in us. And what is consciousness? Consciousness is that includes everything and judges nothing. But what does it mean? And that is a question that consciousness asks itself. What does that mean? So it creates the game. Like, well, if I would like to experience what it means to judge nothing, then I probably better start with experiencing what it means to judge something. So in order to judge something, I better separate so that one thing can judge another thing. So let's just forget about all of this connection and create a game, a massive multiplayer game of pieces that are separated and that can interact. And let those pieces pretend that they are limited, that they are separate from me, consciousness, oneness, God. Let's pretend that they are stupid, and let's pretend that they are judgmental. And I think that game would look pretty much like the one that we're playing now. Of course, it's very evolved, like so many things to fascinate our mind. Eyes to see, ears to hear, plants to eat. Well, not that one. And that creates a dream where we can really experience something. And the more that we identify with the character that we're playing, the more serious we will take the game. The more involved we will become into our emotional journey. The more painful our pain will be, and the more joyful our joy. But what's the point? Like, okay, I started with the point. But we've been through that through ages now. So shouldn't consciousness be satisfied with having experienced a lot of humanity playing with itself? And from my point of view, no. from my point of view, there's something that is missing. And that is, God would like to experience what it means to be God. Like, yes, in this world, in the state that the world is in, looking through our eyes, it's very easy to experience what it means to be judged, or to judge, or to be in pain, or to put pain onto somebody else. Like, we've done a lot of that. But what would it mean to be God in this world? What would it mean to be limitless in this world, to let go of the judgment? And from my point of view, like, if somebody could just turn a switch and put on God mode in this world, like, imagine a computer game where you can basically just switch on God mode, and usually you have to slay monsters, and now you just have to click on the monsters and then they're gone. That will be very interesting for about 5 minutes, because you can kill all the monsters that you couldn't kill before, but then it's just boring because the game is supposed to be difficult. And that is exactly, from my point of view, what we are able to experience here, in the sense of getting more and more limitless every day, getting more and more what it means to be a conscious creator, to create our reality consciously, to pull into our reality what we desire to pull into our reality. Every day, a little bit more. And I forgot what the question was, but I assume I have answered it.
What a fantastic way to end your answer, by the way. Wonderful. Yes, I think you actually answered it in the first sentence and then gave us deeper context afterwards. So, but of course, for you guys who are watching, if there are any questions which arise from this answer or any of Björn's answers, just remember to make a note of them, and we'll get to them at the end. Yes, and I'm just going to add nothing to what you just said, Björn, because there's nothing to add. It was fantastic. Thank you so much. But it does move you on to another question. As we said at the beginning of the call, I'm going to interview and ask Björn questions on 3 key things, 3 key aspects of what it means to rediscover yourself as God. The 3 questions we just looked at there were addressing the quality of really connecting to your limitless and potent potential. The questions I'm now going to ask Björn refer to the second point, what it is like to rediscover that you are God. And that is that you embody yourself as a conscious reality creator. Now that sounds really cool. Sounds like a really cool title that we would all want, right? And Björn, in listening to you talk, and knowing you as I do, of course, I can see that you probably wouldn't have described yourself as that 10 years ago. Probably wouldn't have even known it then, or you would have had a go, but wouldn't have got close. But now this is very much the existence that you live. This is your firsthand experience of life. And the answers that you've given us so far give us a nice glimpse into how you go about creating your reality, what that looks like, what's going on the inside. So my question is, if you were speaking to anyone in this room and they were asking you what steps they can take in order to move themselves into a space where they become a conscious reality creator, what would you advise that person to do or not to do?
Yes, you said that I gave you a glimpse into how I create reality, and no, I didn't. Well, I did energetically, but manifestation techniques are beautiful, are powerful, are fun, and I wouldn't advise to use them. And let me tell you why. Well, that's not true. I would advise you to be conscious about what you're doing. First, mirror reality rules. For those who have read the book, who are a lot, you might already know what I mean. And for those who haven't, let me quickly explain what mirror reality means. We have an insight inside of us. Like, yes, we know our thoughts are kind of inside. Yes, our memories are inside. Our organs are inside, but that's not what I'm talking about. But there's also a lot of subconscious and unconscious stuff. For example, all the memories that we have repressed, all the trauma that we're not willing to look at, all the habits that happen to be habits, but we're not even able to see them as habits because they are so normal to us. All this, what is happening inside of us, is mirrored in the outside reality. And that is how we steer life, or that is how reality steers us, in the sense of most of the outside world is just there as a service for us in order to realize what is inside of us, what we are not willing to look at and might be willing to look at in the future, and who we are in a certain way. And when I say mirror reality rules, what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Let's say you are searching for love. You're looking for the love of your life, or you just would like to be more loved in your life. What is usually happening, and what we're not necessarily taught, what we pull in from everybody around us, is if you require love, then you look for love in the outside. If you have an inkling for love, you will try to find people who love you, or you will find people who are close to you and you will try to convince them to love you by doing services for them, for example. Or you will just be sad that you're looking for love and it's never there. And from my point of view, how to deal with a situation like that is very simple. Not easy maybe, but simple. And that is, the source of everything is inside. If you allow yourself to love yourself first, and that is a choice of letting go of everything that is in the way of that, a choice of giving this conscious attention. If you love yourself first, that is what the mirror reality will show you after a while, when it has transitioned into, like, the feedback is not immediate. And when we are missing love, the only love that can truly fulfill us is our own anyways, which is something that, if you hear it for the first time, might not be easy to get. The only appreciation that will ever satisfy you is your own. No, that's not right. I always look for others to appreciate me and they just don't do it. Well, yeah, that's how the mirror reality works. Like, my invitation, look into that. What would happen? Like, with that question, just what would happen if I allowed myself to really, really appreciate me? What would happen if I really, really allowed myself to love me? What would happen if I really, really allowed myself to acknowledge me? And what would happen if I really, really allowed myself to trust myself? And I'm being taken on tangents again, which is nice, but not good for the timing. So my point, to close that off, when you have an inkling for more love, and you're searching in the outside world for people to love you, or you're trying to convince people to finally love you, that is like looking for cold beer in the oven, which usually doesn't work in my experience. Like, I don't have any beer in my house anyways, but if it was in the oven, it wouldn't be cold. If there is beer, cold beer, it is in the fridge. And the fridge is always yourself. It's always your inner world. And there you have total choice. Does that mean easy? No, but it's simple. So when you mirror reality rules, what happens now when you use manifestation techniques? For example, let's say I have lack of love, but I really don't like to look in the fridge because there everything is cold. I will just manifest a girlfriend that truly loves me. So I'll use what Björn talked about. I will sit down, and after meditation, I will just be very grateful for everything. And then I will be grateful for the girlfriend that comes in my life and really, really loves me. Does that work? And from my point of view, it might. It might actually work. You might find a person that loves you. But the challenge is that we create an imbalance in the mirror, in the sense of the mirror doesn't show us our true insights. The mirror shows us what we asked for, what we sat down and visualized. And yes, we have a lot of power doing that, but it's an imbalance. So as long as we keep doing that, as long as we still sit down every morning and be grateful for the loving girlfriend that comes in our life, or the loving boyfriend that comes in our life, or the loving husband, or whatever suits you. As long as we do the work, it might sustain itself. But the challenge is when we long for something, we have a lot of energy to do it. When it's already there, it's just boring to keep manifesting it. And therefore, we will usually stop. And after a while, it will all fall down. I have a friend, a good friend, a wonderful person who is a master manifester. Like he likes doing that, and he created a crazy life for himself in the sense of when he pulls something in, it comes. Unfortunately, it always falls down afterwards, and then he goes into this deep, painful periods where his life doesn't seem to work. And that is what can happen with manifestation techniques, except if you manifest yourself to wake up, because that balances itself out. But that's a different topic. So if you like roller coasters, manifestation it is.
The manifestation roller coaster. Like, we've got a 7-year retreat we're planning on this call. We've got a theme park around consciousness. Fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. And there was so much within what you said there. And what I really want to look at is, I understand what you were talking about when you gave the example of the girlfriend and the fact that these things are, we distort the mirror, I think you said. So it's something that needs to be continuously fed energetically in order to keep it where it is, let's say. So my question is, how does one balance desire with consciously creating reality? How do we use manifestation and the law of attraction in a way that is more sustainable, a way that doesn't necessarily require us to continuously feed more energy into it? Is that a possibility that we can consciously create our reality in such a way?
Yes, it is. Like, from my point of view, consciousness or God is just like a friend. Well, I'm one with that friend, but you can talk to it. And what my pulling something consciously into my reality recipe is, if you like that, it is basically ask for 2 things and then demand of yourself. Like, first, ask for whatever you would like in your reality. For example, hey, universe, I would really like to have a loving boyfriend in my life. What would it take? Hello, universe, I would really like to embrace myself in a loving relationship. What would it take? That's the first ask. And then the second ask is, universe, can you please put everything in my face that is not aligned with that? So from a constructive perspective, you can see what I'm doing in the sense of, okay, you are somewhere in the mirror. Your mirror reality is whatever is mirrors back what is inside of you. And you say, okay, I would like to be that mirrors this reality back. Okay, universe, please show me whatever is in the way of me being there. Show me whatever is in the way of me mirroring that reality back to me. And then demand, and that is demand of yourself to be and do whatever is necessary in order to be that. Demand of yourself to be willing to let go whatever is shown as not resonant by reality. And just to give an idea, like, I'm not saying it has to be. Like, if that is something that is close to you, or is that something that you already could have in your reality that just happens to be, it can be very easy and very easeful. But in the end, for many things that we ask for, we are basically asking for a mountain. And then the demand is, I'm going to use that mountain and train. Example, I might have asked in the past, universe, what would it take to have a conscious group of people willing to discover what it means to be God? And now that group is kind of coming into my reality more and more every day. But what happened in between? Like, I got a mountain. I got more than one mountain. I was presented willingness to be visible. I was presented many blocking points of view that I had. I had the wonderful opportunity to look a lot onto my shit, let's say. Can I say shit? Yes, I can say shit. You know what I mean. And that is how I see it working in a beautiful way. First, ask the universe for whatever you wish, whatever you desire to have in your reality. Then ask the universe to put everything in your face what is not aligned with that, knowing that you're asking for it. Like, it's good to be conscious about that. And then demand of yourself to go through. And there's another part of it, which is like, I'm telling it like an afterthought, it isn't. What is relevant is that you stay conscious in the process. In the sense of, when you ask for something and then everything comes up at you and you feel like you're lost because so many things are happening and changing in your life, and you go into unconscious in the sense of, no, this is all too much. I don't want any demands anymore. I don't desire to be there anymore. And can I just tune out and not be conscious to any of that? Then you'll never know what you get. Like, my invitation is to also demand of yourself to stay present in the process. I'm not saying it doesn't work without it. I'm not saying that anything bad will happen. But this is what we're here for. And being present with something doesn't just mean eyes open. It means being willing to feel the pain that is coming up, because that is what processes the pain. That is what allows the pain to truly subside. That is what brings you through that. And whatever comes up, just be present with it. Like, presence is a master tool to go through everything. But I'm not going into a deep dive into presence here. So yes.
This is what a conversation with Björn is normally like. Like, as he walks down the path of conversation, there are just rabbit holes either side of him that look so exciting to jump in. But we must stay on point. We must retain our integrity in this conversation. There is something that you were saying there about, asking for anything which is in the way of that being your reality, to be let go of, to be dissolved, to be removed. And the reason I love that is it really points at one of my favorite quotes, which is that we are already that which we seek. And this is what I hear when you say that. You're already divine and magnificent inside. Everything is in there. It's just what distortions are in place, what things are blocking your magnificence from shining through. And I think that's such a wonderfully empowering message. But it is interesting because let us imagine I'm sitting there listening to this and I think, wow, I have Björn's secret recipe for manifestation. I'm going to get to this now. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to manifest all that my heart desires. What do I desire? I don't even know what I desire. Like, how does a person know what to ask for? How does a person know that what they're asking for is in alignment with themselves? How do they know that it's something which is going to be beneficial? And does that even matter? Is the question.
Yes, it matters. First, I wouldn't call it manifestation just because, well, first, manifestation is a name for how it shows up and then what shows up, but that's not the point. The point is this recipe should be well known. Like, it was hidden in a place where nobody usually looks, and that is the Bible. Ask and you shall receive. And that is nothing else. It's just, okay, knowing how to do it consciously and knowing how to do it, but it's already there. So if you ask the question, okay, what would I ask for? I have two answers for that. One is start simple. And if you read my book, you know, I really like joy. Joy is a very productive energy. Joy is a source of life in a certain way. So here's my first invitation. Just ask body or universe, show me joy. Body, what would it take to have more joy in my life? Whoa. Body, what would it take to feel a lot of joy right now? And if that doesn't work for you, universe, show me everything that is in the way of realizing that, of having that every day. Universe, what would it take to wake up in joy every day? And everything that doesn't allow that, just put it in my face. And put it in your face can be many, many things. Like the universe works in miraculous ways. It can be that there is a belief or something in the way, and then your neighbor will just bang the door and trigger the shit out of you just in order to allow you to look at that belief. Like, that's a possibility. But it's also a possibility that a class or a course or a workshop or whatever comes into reality, and you have this, like, your mind will say, no, no money, no time, strange concept, no. But if you have this pull that feels energetically similar to the energy that came up when you asked that ask, or to make it easier, if just your intuition says yes, then that might be the answer in the universe, in the sense of, yes, there you will find the tool, or yeah, there you will find the solution of whatever is in the way. Second option, ask for knowing and satisfying ask, in the sense of learn the tool by applying the tool with the tool. Hey, universe, show me an ask that is satisfying for me. And hey, universe, what would it take to everywhere where I'm not aligned with knowing a satisfying ask for myself, can you put all of that in my face? Can you support me letting all of that go? And see what comes up. And it might be something nice, something easy, something wonderful. In the sense of, yeah, I should ask for a better relationship with my sister or something. Not sure why this is in the room right now. Greetings to your sister, for whomever that applies. I have an interesting point of view, and that is, if an ask or if a vision doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. But my wish is not to project that onto you, because that is a story of my life, in the sense of big asks, big mountains, interesting life, let's say. And I'm not saying that is right. I'm just telling you, if you're called for big things, your asks might be big. And another thing that that played a role in my early manifestation games, and that also plays a role now, is when your mind can come up with a how, when your mind can come up with a way to get there, you make it for yourself much more difficult than when you, one, don't try to get there, don't try to find that way. And it's just way more easier if you just have no idea how to linearize how to get there. because your conclusion creates your reality. Your points of view, your beliefs, your conclusions, your presumptive reality, where you presume something to be a reality, are something that is strong and that sometimes works against you. For example, if you're asking for more money, just more money, not obscene amounts, and at the same time you have the conclusion, okay, all money comes from my employer, that is a powerful point of view that is in your way. And therefore, I would invite you to let go of the point of view that you know where money can come from and open yourself up to the possibility that money can come from everywhere. And here I stand at a junction where I have no idea how I came here.
I'm loving this. I'm loving you just wandering bravely in a direction and seeing where we end up. It's outstanding. It's good fun. Very much enjoying it. And like, I think that's really beautiful. I think you nailed that question from my perspective, at least. Huge amounts of value in there. And it brings me to my next question. Of course, it's almost like they're prepared or something. I don't know. But we've covered a couple of areas so far. I asked you some questions around the potent and limitless capacities that you can tune into when rediscovering your God. I then just asked you some questions about what it means to be a conscious reality creator, and we've explored that a bit. And the third area that I want to point out with some questions now is where we're looking at how does rediscovering your God support you in contributing to humanity at the absolute highest level? So let me just open the question as broadly as that, Mr. Lenz, Dr. Lenz, I should say. In what way does discovering myself as God, how does that act as a contribution to humanity?
Well, where do I start? We often think that this physical reality is the master, is like the leading reality. And what if that isn't the case? Like, I completely agree. Each and every one of us, I assume, is living a very persistent dream, in the sense of we always wake up in the bed that we went to sleep in. And the days make more or less sense. They are kind of connected in the sense of the story just goes on and on and on. But in the end, it's just a dream world that we walk through. And the question is, if physical matter reality doesn't have to be the master, what then is? And many people have a specific point of view, and when they tell that to other people, they often think they are crazy, in the sense of, yes, but everything is energy. Yes, that's true. What does it mean? And what I would like to invite you to look at this moment is the possibility that everything that is happening around us is part of an energetic dance, in the sense of, yes, I can move things with my hands, but there's also an energy surrounding it that just interacts. For example, when I put a positive intention in the water, what does that mean? Well, I'm putting an energy into the water. Okay, very cool. Does that change something? Well, there was a guy, a Japanese guy, and I forgot the name, who experimented on that and says, yes, it does a lot. Yeah, that's energy at work. So if everything is just energy around us and it has an impact, the question is, when I change my being and I emit energy at all times, does that have an impact on reality? And from my point of view, it does. And from my point of view, the moment that any person chooses more consciousness, all of reality changes. The moment anybody is willing to let go of one pain, the moment somebody dissolves a trauma inside of them, the whole of reality changes. the moment that you're willing to step up and choose for yourself to become a conscious creator of your reality, all of reality changes. And that means we don't step into greatness for us. We do it also for us because it is something that is very selfish to do, in the sense of, if I deal with all of my shame, guilt, pain, fear, trauma, my reality changes and everything becomes more happy, more joyful. I could do it for selfish reasons, but it's not the point. The point is, we are at a very exciting moment in time. If you look outside the window, if you look at what is happening in the world, you may realize it seems to be an uptick in intensity. A lot of strange stuff is happening. And from my point of view, the reason is just the next level is coming. The next level of reality, where we are playing a wonderful game. It is sustained by, for example, something like human design, not taking that avenue. But what I'm saying, or what I'm pointing to, is this is the time for more and more incarnates to choose consciousness. And therefore, I'm very happy that we have this conversation here with this wonderful group of people. And the question is, what for? And my answer is joy and satisfaction. We discovering us, we discovering who we are, and we discovering ourselves as God is what leads to joy and satisfaction in our life.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But I'm curious, why does many more people waking up? Hi, Alan. Why does many more people waking up to this truth lead to joy and satisfaction? Why is that? I mean, I can make the leap in listening to what you're saying, but can you go deeper into that for us, please, with a bit more detail?
Yes, not for those who are playing the game. Yes, joy and satisfaction is a normal state when you're in communion with your higher self, with your God self, with what is inside of you, which is your connection to God. And the game that we're playing in this reality is not about leaving. Like, many people might misunderstand what it means to rediscover yourself as God, or to become enlightened as, yes, I can finally leave my body and let go of all of this emotional baggage and all of this hardness and be purely spiritual or something. And that is not what it's about. What it's about is using tools beyond this reality and using tools of this reality in order to play full out in this reality. What means is to truly embody, like, it's actually funny. So many people think enlightenment or rediscovering themselves as God means they finally get rid of the body. And it is a very, let us play a game for a moment. On a scale from 1 to 10, if I say something like, I really hate having a body, there's my German accent. I really hate having a body, from a scale of 1 to 10. How much does that resonate? You can play in the chat if you like. And it is fascinating from my point of view. Like, many zeros, which is beautiful. Like, that is a true connection with your body, and that is just wonderful. But for so many beings, when they come here in childhood, when they have their first experience of what it means to be on this plane, there's just pain. it's just the pain of limitation. It's just the pain of having to learn what it means to be a human, which is hard at the beginning, painful. But it is the game that we're playing is one of integration. Integrating the experiencer and the body and the higher self into one. So for those who have a number higher than 4, like for me, it goes up and down. Sometimes I'm at a 7, especially when I did a lot of work and my awareness grows, and I experience when my neighbor has to go for a shit and my body just wakes me up and says, hey, there's something. And yeah, I can feel it. What is that? It's your neighbor. Thank you for telling me. What, buddy? What are you doing? Having a body is strange, but it is part of this game. So what would it take to really embrace your body as part of the game, knowing that your joy and satisfaction is in the body, not away from the body? Joy comes up when we allow ourselves to discover and choose who we truly are. All parts of us. And choosing that, expressing that, creates more joy and satisfaction. And the one thing to do to create more joy and satisfaction for yourself first, but you experiencing joy and satisfaction is also a great invitation for everybody in your surroundings to go for joy and satisfaction too, is playful out.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love hearing you speak. You always paint beautiful pictures in my mind, which often are profound and sparkly and delicious. And then occasionally you talk about your neighbor taking a shit and the picture's not as enjoyable as the other ones, but I love you nonetheless.
It's just because you don't have a neighbor.
That's very true, very true. So you kind of got to the point at the end yet there where you were talking about playing full out, right? Playing full out in life. And I mean, what does that look like? Because that can be interpreted as many different things in many different ways. So what does that look like exactly for you?
Well, for me, it's just not interesting. The question is for each and every one of you. What does it mean for you? What would it take to play full out? What would it take to let go of all of the fear that you might have of disturbing anybody by being the full expression of yourself? What expression of you could show up if you let go of the stories of what your parents thought that you should achieve in life? And it doesn't matter, like if you're 92 years old, it's very likely that your parents' thoughts of you while you were a child are still impacting you. What would it take for you to embrace the love that you have for yourself in the sense of playing full out? Like, not in the sense of, yeah, that's enough, but in the sense of, yes, and yes. What would it take for you to have every day just be filled with so much joy and satisfaction so that it can only be described as orgasmic? And I don't mean that in a sexual way, in the sense of orgasmic is the energy of living, the energy of thriving in life. What would it take? And it's something that is completely unique to you. And that is what you're here for, in order to be the expression of you. We are a 3-part being. I talked about that before. Like, we have a higher self. We have an experiencer. The experiencer is like the one that tells us our story of our life. The one that thinks, okay, and now it's 10 o'clock and it's time to go to bed, I guess. And the one that remembers the past. That's the experiencer. Sometimes it's called the mind, but that is just very confusing. And then there's a body. And we think that giving one of those priority makes any sense. We often think that, maybe not in this community, because many people told they are completely happy with the body. The gift of playing full out, of being in your power in this reality, is the communion of those three parts, the communion between body, experiencer, and higher self. The not running away from any part of it. It's not about getting rid of our story, of that what we experience. It's not about getting out of our mind through meditating the whole day and just having no thoughts. It's not about leaving the body. And it's also not about running away by, yes, I'm God, earth doesn't matter to me. We are here to embrace the gift that we bring to humanity in every moment of time. And a question that supports us on that path of playing full out. A question that leads us more to us, because that is what gives us power when we embrace ourselves. It is, if you would truly choose for you, what would you choose? In your head, that sounds like, if I'm choosing for me right now, what would I choose? And I invite you to have that as a guiding question. Play with it, see what happens. If you would choose for you right now, or if you would choose as you right now, or if you would choose as the full expression of you right now, what would you choose?
I feel like I'm going to leave some space for people to be with that question for a moment. Magnificent, Björn. Thank you. Wonderful. And I've had one eye on the chat on the side, and there's some phenomenal comments coming in there, guys. Thank you so much. Lots of insight, lots of questions, which we are going to get to shortly. So thank you. And yes, for those of you good at timekeeping, you'll notice that we are going a bit longer than anticipated, but we just don't leave anything off the table, you know. Excuse me. So we have so far in this conversation explored, from Björn's perspective, the three real qualities of rediscovering your God: this reconnection to your potent and limitless self, the embodiment of yourself as a real conscious reality creator capable of creating the reality they most desire, and the capacity to really contribute to humanity at the highest possible level. And Björn, thank you for answering the questions. I know that you're called from pillar to post in moments, and you did fantastically well, so thank you so much. But what I would like to do now is I'd like to share with you guys some things that we have created, because the reason that we're playing this game, the reason that Björn is creating this wonderful book and everything that we're doing behind the scenes, is that we are looking to support anybody and everybody ready to embrace this awareness, ready to step into the true magnificence of what life can bring them and what life can offer them. So we're always playing the game of how much can we do? How far can we go in supporting you guys? And those of you who have read the book will see that we tried to make it practical, and the audiobook as well, and all these other things. But we have, in the last few months of diligent work, created two tools which we feel are incredibly powerful for supporting you. Now, I'm going to talk about these two tools in a moment. The first thing that I want to say is I did touch on at the start of the call, the fact that whether you have read the book already or whether you have not, or whether you are partway through reading the book now, that what Björn shares on this webinar is going to be valuable across the board. And that's the same with the tools that I'm about to share with you. Whether you are haven't yet read the book, you're in the middle of it, or you've finished it and considering going back to it, the tools that we're about to share with you are going to be incredibly powerful, wherever you are on that scale, in supporting you to have a visceral realization of yourself as God, to have that as a direct experience in your reality. So it's not just something fantastical sounding, which resides in your analytical mind, but it's something which is embedded into every fiber of your being, is a deep knowing, a true embodiment. So I'll mention these tools now, and then we'll move into a Q&A with you guys so we can answer all questions you may have. So look at this. Do you remember we said at the start of the call, Damir's role is to make sure that everything runs smoothly? I just opened my mouth and the slide appears. How absolutely fantastic. So this is the first tool. It's called the Study Companion, as you can see. Now, this is a series of videos, 15 to 20 minutes on average. One video dedicated for each of the chapters within the book. Now, this is Björn stepping into your position as your personal private guide, supporting you in really taking each of those chapters deep, because when we are deconstructing existing paradigms which may have been limiting to us, and we're really looking to adopt a more life-affirming and expansive way of looking at reality, it can be a challenge. Dissolving these pieces can be problematic or even difficult. I'm reminded of Alan Watts, who, when he says, a flame cannot burn a flame, the eye cannot look at the eye, and the teeth cannot bite the teeth. We can sometimes get stuck and not be able to see the wood for the trees. So the purpose of this study companion is really for Björn to act as a mirror for you in these videos, for you to really be able to take this to the next level of depth. And the questions for self-reflection, again, serve to really, really further that. There are a number of exercise and strategies throughout the course of the study companion. You've got a beautifully made study workbook as well, 43 pages long. And of course, as with all of the content that Björn produces, it's imbued with a very powerful energetic transmission. Now, the normal price that we're going to have for the study companion will be $77.97. But because you are going to be the first group that we take through this, we have decided to essentially cut that price in half. So it's down to $37.97. Okay. Now you have lifetime access to this. From my perspective, I just have to say, after going through the creation of this and working with Björn so diligently on the book, this is the perfect companion. You know, if you really, really want to get the most out of the material that Björn shares in the book, Rediscovering You Are God, this is an absolute go-to. Almost, I would use the word mandatory, although I don't like to use that. But that's where I'd go, because I think it's so very powerful. Damir, could you pop us on to our next slide, please? There you go. Fantastic. I had to ask you there, Damir. Not quite as efficient as you were on the last one, but wonderful nonetheless. Thank you. So I've been talking for a little bit too long now. Let's shake this up a bit. Björn, we have looked at 3 points in this call. 3 qualities of rediscovering yourself as God: connecting to your limitless and potent nature, embodying yourself as a conscious reality creator, and being able to express yourself at the highest level to contribute to the world. So my question is, how does the book Study Companion support a person rediscovering themselves as God, and then support those 3 key points that we've been discussing today?
Yes. Yes. I would like to be full screen, Damir. I talk enough to be that. Thank you. First, thank you, Nick. I'm going to do something that I'm not supposed to do. I'm going to contradict Nick. From my point of view, the study companion is there to exponentialize the book. Like, the book is one thing, and I almost feel guilty for not having the study companion ready for those who bought the first versions of the book, because it makes it much more powerful. But from my point of view, they really go together. That means if you haven't read the book, it would be smart to get them both, because it's powerful. If you feel a calling to revisit the book, I saw it once, yes, it's still there on the chat. I feel the need to reread the book. If that is calling you, and it doesn't have to be the whole book, it could also be like, okay, I'll revisit. Like, what might happen for you is watch a module, and then you feel into it. Do I reread the chapter or not? And then you might reread chapter 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 10. Who knows? Or you might just reread the book with the companion again. But if you're basically, yeah, I've read the book, can't be bothered to read it again, I would say don't get the course. You could watch it for entertainment, but don't. It's not for that. It might still have an impact on you, but I don't feel valued with that. That's interesting. Okay, do whatever is right for you. So the 3 things, having in mind that this just makes the book more powerful. Not sure why I said just. This makes the book more powerful. The first is discover your potency and your limitlessness. And when we are children, when we enter this world and we don't enter the world through the exit at our birth time, we enter the world a little bit earlier. We take on so many beliefs of our parents, and it starts with our mother in her womb, and it goes on until we are, I don't know, 16 or something, where we just pull in and pull in and pull in limiting beliefs and projections about what reality means and what it doesn't mean, and basically shutting away our godliness. Like, I know we're a little bit late, but I'm going to tell a quick story. Anyways, I had the experience a few years ago. My daughter is 6 now, so it's about 4 years ago. She was 2. When I was basically sitting in her room reading while she was supposedly falling asleep, but she was having a wonderful monologue in the sense of she was entertaining herself by talking to herself. And her conversation went, how can this be? Like, I am this, but I'm also everything. What is that? Am I now this or am I everything? Which tells me she was just in that moment, not all the time, I guess, but in that moment, completely connected to her godliness, which is beautiful. It's maybe also something that works easier when you're almost sleeping already. But that is where we are coming from. And the thing that is stopping from us to embrace that every moment are our beliefs. And everything that is happening in the book is designed to support you dissolving conditioning, for example, through triggers and how to work with them, and so many more places in the book. Second, embody, how to become a conscious reality creator. Yes, there is a chapter about the mirror reality that is very supportive to re-engage with that, and you might understand why and how after you have listened to me to talk about it for a while today. As it's not about manifesting, it's about allowing the mirror to show up whatever we desire to show up and choosing that consciously. There's also a whole module about asks. And I remember when I recorded the module, like what I do is I connect with the audience, the future audience, and ask questions like, okay, what creates the greatest benefits for them? What can they hear? And I was surprised by the depth that I went in that module, in the sense of, I suppose the course was about holding hands and motivating and just being present, and that is all in there. But this module, at least, is also for the, well, serious seeker doesn't, it sounds cool, but it's not the energy. It's for the curious finder, for the successful finder. It is when you're willing to embrace this journey, I think there is a lot in there for you. And contribute. Third part, as we talked about it, when you work on yourself, you change your reality. And the book is all about that, obviously. And the companion too, as it supports the book. And from my point of view, okay, that might sound grandiose, that might sound self-important, but from my point of view, your engagement with the book is a gift to humanity. Every moment that you spend with the book is a gift to humanity. I seriously have that point of view. and feel into it if it's true for you. Feel into it if that resonates. From my point of view, this is something great that we are walking towards. And that is something that is just a tool, the book and the companion, that are just very supportive to whatever is going to come. And whatever you invest into your development, as I have explained, is a gift to the rest of humanity. And that gift will be mirrored back to you in many, many ways, because that is also the beauty of the mirror reality. Whatever we are gifting to anybody, we will receive back. And that is how we move forward in beautiful ways. And as you might feel this space, like I'm always there for you. Those in the Facebook and the Rediscovering Your God Family Facebook community might know that I'm always there for you. I'm there for you through the book. I'm there for you through the community. And whenever you require anything, pull. But having me on video next to the book, going through that together, can be very powerful if you allow it to be.
Thank you, Björn. And while we're on the topic, never contradict me again. That's not allowed. I'm joking. Anytime I'm going to contradict me, I was like, oh no, where did they go wrong? But it's beautiful. I love this conscious, open communication that we have. It's outstanding. And thank you for giving us a nice, deep understanding from your perspective as to the value of that tool. And there were a couple of messages I saw in the chat where people were inquiring as to how they would sign up for this. So I say, just hold your enthusiasm just a small amount of time, because we have something else to share with you. Then we'll let you guys know exactly how to take care of this for yourselves. So the next thing that I want to talk about, let me see if this works. Yay, look at that. Click my fingers and it appears. How fantastic. So this is the second tool that we have created for you guys, again, to support you in the rediscovering of yourself as God and the embodiment of that realization. Now, with this program, it's the Being You as God workshop. So the first 2 points here, let's just address them quickly. Book study companion, everything you've just seen on the last page, everything in the study companion that we talked about, the 9 videos, the workbook, everything Björn just talked about is included here. So if you sign up for this tool, you get the other tool included. What you also get here is a physical paperback copy of the book. Now, this was another question that I saw pop up in the chat. People asking, I think Corey asked whether there was a physical copy. Yes, there is. And with this one-day workshop, you actually get a copy included for yourself. But then this workshop is a little bit special, because this is an opportunity to spend time in a live situation with Björn. And this is delivered through a one-day live online workshop. It's 4 or 5 hours in length. And it comes with a comprehensive manual, as you can see on your screen. If you look at the graphic on your right, you can see the dates, 29th of July, and we have the different time zones here. Now, Björn, let me not talk too much about this. Let's get the man himself discussing this tool and discussing why you feel this tool is so powerful. So in terms of this tool, Being You as God workshop. Next slide, please, Damir. Yeah, there you are. How does this particular tool support a person in rediscovering themselves as God? And if you can again connect that to the 3 key points that we have been revisiting during this webinar. Thank you.
Yes. First, discover. That class is in the context of access consciousness, which doesn't mean a lot in the sense of, okay, I'll be there, you will be there, and we will use powerful tools beyond this reality, and they will be a lot of fun. But the core of the class is me facilitating brave participants of the class who are willing to be vulnerable and share whatever is coming up for them. And with respect to discover, is we start as I shared before, we basically start to disconnect from our divinity, from being us as God in this world when we are very small children. And the beauty in being in a group setting where a lot of people come together is that if somebody is willing to address an issue and he or she has the ability to verbalize what is happening with them, and that issue is worked on and is solved, well, not only if, but through working on that, it is dissolved for everybody else who also has that in the class. And that is independent of if it is pre-verbal for them or verbal for them, which means, in very short words, and it's not that important if you don't understand it, a group settings coaching is very important if we wish to dissolve beliefs and points of view that were stuck in us from a very, very early childhood time. Because when somebody is able to access it in a verbal way, energetically, everybody gets cleared. Embody. We are creators of our reality anyways. Like, we cannot stop creating our reality. The question is, do we do it consciously or do we do it unconsciously? The question is, does the reality just come to us, or do we guide reality to unfold in a way that suits us? And by that, I don't mean necessarily that you already know what is going to happen in the future, because usually the future shows up differently than we thought it would. But the direction is the best word that I can come up with us in this moment, can be chosen directly. And the only thing that stops us from doing that, the only thing that stops us from always creating our reality, and creating our reality in the sense of our greatness, our willingness to play full out as ourselves, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stand on big stages, but it means being more of ourselves, channeling more energy into this world, being more of ourselves, and being more of the true us, or the God in us, which is almost a synonym. And all the beliefs that we are not powerful, all the beliefs that we are not able to embody God on this reality, is also something that we will look at in the class. And the third part to look at is contribution. And from my point of view, there is something very magical about this class. And let me give my best shot in putting that into words. You might enter the class for selfish reasons, because it is a powerful class. It might change your reality. It might put you in a completely different state of how you see your life unfolding. It might put you into a completely different way how you perceive reality, how you perceive yourself in the trinity of body, God self, and experiencer. The change that is possible with this class on the personal level, as I perceive it, is huge. Yet that is not what the class is about. From my point of view, this is a coming together of people, of souls, willing to look at their divinity in an intensity that I don't think that has happened before. I'm not saying there were no different being you classes before. There were. But being you as God is something that is unique yet the first time. And what I perceive is that class might change something important. How does that look like? How will we know if you made it? I have no idea. But my invitation to you is, like, when you're willing to bring yourself to the class, I am deeply honored and humbled because every person that will come to that class will make that class more powerful. And I'm quite sure we will have a lot of fun exploring what it means to be us as God in this reality. One more thing to add is I know that we have an interesting challenge of having a global community. And that is a very interesting experience because many people who are very interested in this webinar would have to wake up at 2 in the morning. And that is not like, I don't know if I would do that. So many people have to get the recording and other people have to work, and we just have to find a time that makes sense for most people so that we can have, again, a lot of people in here. It will start at the same time as this webinar on a Saturday and just will run a little longer than the webinar. Well, depending on how much questions we get at the end, we'll see. But that is a plan. If you would like to get the recording of that class, that is only possible if you declare yourself to be part of the class, in the sense of what you can do is buy the class, not show up, and you will receive a recording. What you can't do is after the class say, hey, I would like to buy the class, I'm happy with the recording. Doesn't work. Everybody who is on the class has bought and paid the class before it happens.
Wonderful. And outstanding. Where do we go from here, I wonder? So we have, there was a point here where I was going to look at a couple of common objections, the common questions that people may have, but I feel that you've addressed these really beautifully in your sharing. Your capacity to wander around tangents creatively on this call has meant that you've covered a lot of stuff really efficiently. Your German efficiency is shining through, my brother. Wonderful. So I feel we're at the point in the conversation in which we can transition into a bit of Q&A, and I think it's a nice time to do that as well. We have been with you guys for nigh on 2 hours. Thank you so much for the commitment, and I see that 80–90% of you are still in the room, so really, really wonderful. It's a testament to your dedication to yourselves and a testament to the wisdom that Mr. Lenz is dropping. So we have a number of questions. I can see that there's 15 questions lit up in the Q&A section here. I saw that some people were posting questions in the chat. Damir has been collecting these and storing them. So we'll go through these questions now, one by one, and we'll try to get you all covered off before we go. Yes, thank you, Julia. Outstanding suggestion. So Damir, if you could pop these 2 links to sign up for the study companion and to sign up for Being You as God into the chat. And then guys, all you need to do is click on that link in the chat. Of course, you can type your URL into your address bar on your browser if that's easier, and go and sign up. There we go, Damir, fantastic. Thank you so much. So let's look at some Q&A. Now I'm just going to go through these in order, and they were coming in from the very beginning of the webinar, Bjorn. So it might be that you addressed some of these, but let's touch on them anyway. And if you feel you have addressed it already, maybe we'll just be a bit concise with it. So first question, how important is it for you, Bjorn, to have PhD after your name? It is, of course, a great achievement, but does it matter when talking of being God?
That is a wonderful question. There's a part of me that would like to dismiss it as, of course, it doesn't matter. But there's also a part of me that sees a certain relevance, not in the sense of any PhD, but if I look at the spiritual literature, if I look at what is out there in order to understand this reality, I do see that my points of view are in many places very unique. And that uniqueness, in my point of view, is coming from that I've been on the other side, that I've had a very scientific background, a very, very this reality point of view. And I'm not saying others don't, but from my point of view, it seems to add value from that direction. In the end, feel free to ignore it. Like, it is a little bit interesting in the sense of, when I look at my life, there was a time where I didn't have a PhD, of course. Then there was a time when I did have it, and I was still at the university and nobody cared about it because everybody had one anyways, basically. Then I was working in an insurance company where I basically had the point of view, like, doesn't matter. But many people made a lot of fuss about it, like really holding it in high regard, where I just didn't really understand it. Then I founded a company, and there I could see that it transmits trust in a certain way. Like, the company was in the private health insurance industry, and it seemed to signify to people that I know what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that is a valid judgment or not. I'm just saying, if it helps the cause of people trusting me with what I do right now, to know what I'm doing, I'm happy to use it. And it's also like something nice. If people like to be triggered, they can use that as a trigger point, and that's also always entertaining.
Thank you. The things that entertain you, Mr. Björn. What a wonder. The next question I have here is from Carol. Do you offer subtitles? I apologize, Karen. It's probably a bit, Carol, so it's probably a bit later in the call for me to be spotting this one. But as you are here and you have managed to attend, of course, you will be we'll be sharing the recording with you, and I will speak with the tech team to see if we can have some subtitles put onto the recording, see if that's a possibility for you. But sorry, I didn't spot that earlier on in this conversation. Oh, now this one is broad. Heikel, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, my friend. You've given Björn a beautifully open question, and I feel it might be too big for this space. Maybe we think about addressing this in its fullness in another webinar at some point. I don't know, but let me just throw the question at you and see what you think, Björn. So Heikel says, I am a mathematician myself, and I love going down the rabbit hole and find it more and more until I get the full of it. And then here's the open question. Here's the open part. Tell us more about the last 7 years after your training with Peter Sage. It's a very, very big space. So would you care to fill it now, or give some high-end points, and how do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm trying to connect to the time. It is a long time, and it was a time full of challenges, as it maybe often is when we discover our divinity or our greatness in a certain way. I had many avenues that I'm not very proud of. I had many stories where the universe just was putting beautiful things in my path. So let me talk a little bit. Sorry for, well, if nobody is there on the call anymore, just tell me to stop, basically, okay? One story I would like to share is what happened after that experience that I was talking about is, or after the exploration with Peter Sage, is that I realized reality isn't what it seems to be. And the question was, okay, what do I do now? Because just exploring reality is something that doesn't work. It requires something to do beyond that. Just reading books the whole day, or just going on retreats the whole day, or that isn't it. Therefore, I required something to do. I still had my job, I still had my company, but when you realize what reality is about, supporting people paying less for their private health insurance isn't very satisfying, in the sense of I had the desire to change lives. And that is how I ended up in the self-help industry. I prefer to call it self-development industry. First, supporting Peter actually in marketing, and then starting to do more and more bits by myself, founding different kinds of entities, enterprises like Pineal, and working with consciousness in many different ways. I would like to tell a story, a story of the magic of this reality. And that is, at one moment in time, I was basically having to make up my mind. Do I leave the company that I founded and work for Peter Sage's marketing or not? And at that moment in time, I was still married. And the lady I was married to basically said, well, a new adventure, and nobody knows whenever this will become financially feasible. That doesn't really work for me because we have 2 children and we have to find a way. And I told her, well, yes, but it's very, very important to me. And she said, well, if we would have paid for the house, if we would have paid the house in full, then I could relax, because then I know we have a place to live, and whatever I make with my half-time job will support us and I can be relaxed. I said, well, okay, it was April and we had bought the house in January. Like, okay, you can't ask me to have made so much money in 4 months to pay off the house that we just bought on credit. And also, it doesn't make sense to pay it off because credit is something good. We could put it into more sensible investments. So she said, okay, so if we have enough money so that we could pay off the house, even if we don't do it, that works for me. I said, yeah, but still. She said, okay, I don't want to stand in your way. So what would work for me is if you make a serious, detailed financial plan. How much money do we actually have? How much money do you require for this business? How much do you require every month? And what is the time when it doesn't make money that we pull the plug? I said, well, okay, let's do that. So I went downstairs into my home office and I started to look at our financials. The credit that was open for the house was 400,000 euros. So I looked at the investments that I still had that I didn't sell for the house. And there was Bitcoin, 20,000. Okay. Then I remembered, well, there was this funny cryptocurrency that I bought a few years ago. And I assumed it would probably have developed similar to Bitcoin. So maybe 10-folded, 8-folded. I invested 800 euros into that. So maybe 8,000, but let me check. And it was one piece of the ICO of Ethereum. I had forgot, and I didn't know what it was worth. And when I looked at it, at first I didn't understand what the number meant, because I'm a European, putting commas into numbers is very strange for me. And then I realized it was almost $400,000. So making that euros together with those 20K that I found in Bitcoin, I was at 395,000 euros. Looking at the cash accounts, it was exactly 400,000 euros. Like the universe had created a situation where I knew nothing about, where exactly what was asked for by my wife at the time was in the accounts. And yes, it's just a funny story. From the outside, it just feels like coincidence or I don't know. But for me, the amount of guidance that I felt in this moment, the support that I felt from the universe, this moment of, okay, nice, I'm supposed to do that. That's fine, I'll do that. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, and I think I leave it at that for that question. Like, yes, I did do many things. There will be a time where I do either a webinar or probably just a very long Facebook Live where I tell my life story. Not today, though.
Wonderful. And I know a lot of that story, so I know it's going to be fantastic when you release it. And there's something for everybody to look forward to. We'll let you all know. Don't worry about that. So we've got another question here, as I'm sure you're not surprised. The interesting thing is that you wonderful people have started asking more questions since we began this. So we've answered a few questions, yet the questions yet to go has grown. I love your engagement. It's wonderful. So this question is from anonymous attendee. I guess that's not their birth name. They chose to be anonymous in this moment. And Mr. or Miss attendee says, I personally understand the concept of God or Christ consciousness in the context of spirituality. But of course, these terms have been taken over by religion. How do we get around this and separate these concepts in our mind? And in talking about this concept with others without it being misunderstood? I hope that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Like a part of me just wishes to answer, if you figure it out, tell me. And as I do run Facebook ads with the with the title Rediscovering Your God on a book, I do engage a lot with people who are religious and have strong points of view about that what I'm doing is blasphemy, devil's work, whatever. And one thing that seems to be important to me is rediscovering your God does not mean rediscovering you are an extra God. Rediscovering you are God that can then compare to the God. That is not what it's about. Rediscovering your God means rediscovering that you can connect internally to the God consciousness, and you can work with that connection until you can get experientially what it actually means to be God. But it's not another God. It is a deep connection to the God. There is no contradiction between what I'm sharing and religion. Yet that doesn't mean that they do not choose to push it aside and see it in a different way. The way that I like to explain it, if somebody is open to hear it, is at the time of Jesus Christ, humanity was at the state where humanity was at. And he, as he was very connected, asked himself questions also in the sense of what can people hear? And they could hear him say that I am a son of God and I have a message to share with you. Through words, yes, but mostly energetically, if you look at it. But what he said was, I am the Father and the Father is me. Which basically means I am one with God. And most people, religious people, let's say, read that or hear that as I am special because I am God on earth. And how I hear that is, look what I have found about myself. I am one with God. And now check in for yourself. Maybe you can find the same thing. From my point of view, Jesus was an invitation for all of us to rediscover our divinity. He was not saying that he is different. He was saying that he found something and is inviting us to do the same. Did I answer the question? Of course not.
It was a wonderfully big question. It was a wonderfully big question, but I don't know if everyone else is having this experience. Like, I far prefer you tangenting or going into this deep exploration within yourself and asking these questions. It's far more value and far more enjoyable than just giving us a one sentence answer. So I like the fact that you get to the end of it and you have no idea where you've just been because it's wonderful and we're enjoying the journey. So next question, and this is it's from Hamed, and Hamed has actually split the question into 3 parts, but I'm going to bring them together because I could see there was an evolving thought process. So, religion is a human game as God? Question mark. How to get out of the box of religion? Islam threatens with death, and many Sufi who realize they are God got killed. I would need help to get out of Islam religion peacefully. That means I need to let go of my family roots. I struggle and do not know where do I go and how do I live. Another option is how to live as God within the frame of the Islamic religion. I am confused what to choose and what is possible.
And confusion is a wonderful state to be in. I don't know enough about Islam to tell you how much, if there are points where it actually contradicts. And I don't think there are. The question is always, what do you do inside of yourself? And what do you share openly? In my reality, it often happens that I deal with people who have beliefs that don't make sense to me. I'm just aware of them, and I can listen to them. I can be with them without aligning and agreeing with anything, just holding space. And that is something that works magically. Like, from my point of view, what happens in society is that people try to convince each other that their point of view is right. And there's a wonderful reason for that, because they have insecurity inside. They have a pain inside that tells them, this is important to us. Is it truly right? This is important to us. Is it truly right? And they think when they can bring somebody else to align and agree with their point of view, they have satisfied themselves in order to actually know that this is right. But going back to the very beginning of this call, this is looking outside of yourself for something that you wish to feel inside of you. And the thing that I talk a lot about is access to knowing. And all of this work allows us an access to knowing that is completely different to what we are used to, how to discover knowledge, how to discover understanding. And that is asking a question and allowing us to perceive the answer. That, of course, requires trust, and that is an internally process to work with that. And I know I didn't answer the question again. Yet I think I radiated something intensely to you. I love that question. The question is, what do you actually desire? And none of those things that I talk about have to be practiced practically, because it is no religion. It is a relationship between you and you, maybe between you and God, but it's actually more about you and you. And that is something that can be completely private to you. You can choose to talk about it. You don't have to.
Thank you. Beautiful. We have a couple of questions here from Paul Gritters. Paul, if you're still on the call, hello. The reason I address you directly now is I think we need a little bit more information in the question. Your first question is, what about the families R and R and all their plotting for centuries? So I can assume that you're talking about hidden hand of government, Rothschild people, things like this, but I don't know. So if you could add a bit more in there, then we can actually answer the question. And you have another one below, which is, are you familiar with the author, philosopher, anthropologist, and spiritual teacher? Question mark, because you've missed the name out there. You told us what this person does, but we just missed the name. So Paul, if you could just update those two questions, write them again for us, just so that we know exactly what it is that you are answering, that'd be superb. So while we're waiting for that, we'll move on to the next one. Heidi Wasif, thank you for your question, Heidi. And the question is, the Bible is misinterpreted. How do you translate it?
Well, I agree that the Bible is misinterpreted many times. And the answer is, I don't. From my point of view, the Bible is a wonderful book that served an important purpose at its time. From my point of view, one of the big differences between now and then is that we are now ready to wake up to the reality that we have access. We have access through our knowing. And it's not people tasked with writing the new Bible that now have access to knowing, and therefore they can channel the new word of God. It is now we're ready in a time where everybody can just tune in for themselves and know what's true for them. And yes, that will be a completely different time. And yes, the Bible will still have a place. But the majority of people, well, now I'm in a reality where the majority of people have woken up. That's a nice reality. In that reality, everybody just has their relationship to the all, to God. And we don't require a guidebook anymore.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, Paul was with us. He's just given us a bit more information for one of his questions. So I'm gonna jump back to that question now. So, Björn, Paul asks, are you familiar with the author, philosopher, anthropologist, and spiritual teacher, Marcel Messing?
His titles sound impressive, but unfortunately not.
Paul, I'm going to give you a gold star because you've come up with the question that elicited the swiftest and shortest answer from Björn on the entire webinar today. So that's impressive. Good work. But if there's a further question, maybe about one of Marcel Messing's particular teachings or something that you want to pop into the chat for, do feel free if there was something you were pointing at there. So let's go into the next question. Parissa Cruz asks, so if we have only egocentric desire, can we not manifest anything?
Well, you're always manifesting. You're always creating your reality. And egocentric desire is also a judgment. Who is to judge if it makes sense in your context? Of course, you know where it's coming from. If it's coming from fear, if it's coming from not being good enough, if it's coming from proving something, then you will have a hard time. I would never say it's impossible. And you create your life journey in a very magnificent way. But our life journeys don't follow straight lines. They bend like a river. If it serves you for your journey to have the result of an egocentric manifestation be put on your feet, in front of your feet, the universe might have something in store for you. Feel free to ask another question. Like, I feel there's something where I could support you, but I can't hold onto it. What would happen if you allowed yourself to embrace something that you're not willing to see about you? As I have no context where this is coming from, I can't speak to that more.
Beautiful. Thank you. Our next question. We're working our way through these rather efficiently. Heiko asks, what is the next level of reality?
That is a question for personal exploration. And next level always depends on where you are now. Like, there is a level of reality where we're trying to control reality with our mind, where we are trying to live in the future of always knowing what is going to happen next. Then there is another level of reality where we're still very much into physical reality, but more in a surrendered state, in the sense of, yeah, what happens, happens, and navigate the boat in the now, which is another level of reality. Then there's a level of reality where you float in the now, but the physical matter reality is not where you are residing, in the sense of that your mind is in tune with what happens energetically. What happens energetically in the world, what happens energetically in your surroundings, what happens energetically in the future. Like, just being very aware. And that is completely different perception of reality. And then there are other levels, but it doesn't make too much sense to describe them. You become more and more the passenger of what is happening in the Trinity of body, experiencer, and God self. And like, there is no right and wrong reality. There is no more or less evolved reality. It's a little bit in there, but that's not the point. There is no right or wrong way to experience reality. The question is, what brings joy to you? And for many people, it is very joyful to just fully identify with their body, because that is just where they're at. And that doesn't mean it's wrong, even though for you it might be more about communion between higher self, body, and experiencer. You have an emotional guidance system that will always tell you if you're on the path. And one thing, like jumping back into this compared to religion thing, is religion is not wrong. From my point of view, there are many very limited points of view that are perpetrated through religion, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just means that if that serves somebody and they are happy, they're enjoying themselves, and this is the way that they create their life for themselves, that is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. I was waiting. So for anyone watching, you'll see there's sometimes a bit of additional silence between Björn and I. It's because we've had these conversations a lot, and I know that sometimes Björn goes into silence, and it's easy to think he's complete, and then you go to speak, and then just pure more wisdom pours out. So I always just try to give a few more seconds of silence just to be sure I'm not going to step on toes. That's why that keeps coming up. So some more questions. An easy one to address is Dawn Klein asks, okay, thank you. My email is X, Y, and Z. Please send me the information I need to replay this presentation. So I'll just address that easily for us all. There will be an email sent out to all who registered, whether you're here live, whether you couldn't attend, with the link to the recording. So you all get them. Of course, we have your emails from when you registered. So there's nothing for you to do apart from keep an eye out in the email inbox. So we have questions from Parisa. Let's have a look here. So Parisa asks, is there anywhere else where she can access the book beside the mentioned website?
Well, if you would like to buy another book, you can get a digital version at godbook.info, or you can get a physical version at bjornlenz.com. And yet, if somebody is getting a book, I really recommend getting the companion with the book. And where to get that is godbook.info/companion.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Parisa has another question. How long does it take to go through it? She means the book and the study companion.
Well, if you do nothing else, it will take you one working day, I guess. Not sure if it's advisable.
Careful what you ask for. Okay. Oh, this is a juicy question from Mikhail. As co-creators of this reality, are we responsible for each other's actions?
Not at all. Like, the biggest gift that you can give anybody is allowance, in the sense of allow them to be whatever they choose to be, allow them to choose whatever they like to choose. Because we have so many ingrained patterns. Like, my father knew something about me when I was a child, and that is, whenever he told me to go somewhere, I will not do it. For example, when I was thinking about what am I going to study, he was aware enough not to share his opinion, because he knew if he had shared his opinion, I would have chosen something else. And that is something how most humans work, how most people work who are inclined to spirituality. As soon as you have a point of view that something that they do is wrong, they will do it twice as hard. And the biggest gift that we can be is to know people choose what they choose because they choose what they choose. Like, we tell ourselves a lot of stories, and most stories that we tell have one purpose for existence, and that is to validate the choices that we took. What if there is no thing like a reason for choices? What if everybody just is allowed to choose whatever they choose? And what freedom can that bring? Because that creates a freedom to actually choose. That creates the opportunity to experiment and realize that we have a guidance system and knowing that tells us what creates the most in every moment. It also means that, like, okay, let me create a little bit of context. When I say I am bringing together a group of people willing to rediscover that they are God, and I can see a vision of a world that works differently. That is something that I aspire to. That is something that I invite people to resonate with, and that resonance is what's going to create it. Yet that doesn't mean that the current reality is in any way wrong. I actually think it is going strong in the direction required in order to make possible what I'm envisioning. The stress that is put on this reality just leads to more people waking up, to more people getting ready to discover what they truly are. And for personal satisfaction, for how we live our life, we are completely independent of the shared reality. Of course, you have a choice of points of view that you wish to take. Like, if you choose to suffer because children in Africa are starving, that's a choice, but it's just an interesting choice. Looking at this through the eyes of God just gives a very different perspective, where you have to embody and allow that the experience you are in is just that, an experience. And the experience the child that is starving in Africa is in is just an experience. And the honoring of the child requires to know that they are God and that they are choosing this for themselves.
Thank you. Standing. Wonderful performance this evening thus far. And it's beautiful. There's a couple of people whose minds have been blown, I think, because occasionally you finish answering, and as I go to ask you the next question, I just see, wow, pop up in the chat. It's wonderful. So there's another question. We're coming down to the last handful of questions now. This one is again from Parisa. She's full of questions this evening. Wonderful.
Oh, she's always full of questions.
Curious. How delightful. And Parisa's question here is, how different is the Being You as God workshop from the video course?
Well, there are two video courses that you might be talking about. One is the companion, something that we created fresh. And the answer is completely different games. And there's another video course, which we can now call the deep dive. I'm not going into details about that, which is a deeper dive into the book. And it's still completely another game. The one part is where I just share information. The courses are where I share information, and that information can be like, the information is not about the information. The information is a tool to transport a transmission that might allow you to make different choices and change if you like to. the class is a completely different beast. It is an entity, and that entity works with everybody who has signed up with the class from the moment they sign up on. And when we meet then in that Zoom, the class is an entity that will work through me, and we will just discover beautiful parts of ourselves that we didn't know existed. The class is created by the participants, through the participants, in a completely unique way. And like, if you ask me questions like, what will the class be about? Then I can give you the answer. Well, the name of the class is Being You as God, so I assume it will be about that. Everything else is flow. I have no prepared content. I have backup content in case nobody asks questions, so don't worry about that. I will still be able to entertain you. Yet, I don't see that happening. That class is an entity where I facilitate you, those who are willing to play, and that whatever is created in that class energetically will facilitate the world in a very interesting way. And that is all I know. And I don't wish to go into any projections. Like, if there are 2 people in the class, great. We will have a wonderful time exploring reality. If there will be 30 people in the class, great. That is like the perfect amount of people where everybody can say something in the course of 5 hours. And if there are 100 people in the class, great. It will be magical. It will be powerful. And I still wouldn't have an idea what is going to happen, as the class happens similar to this. I open my mouth and then I'm just astounded of the words that are coming out.
Beautiful, lovely, comprehensive answer there. You are, yeah, it's Parisa's last question. I think Parisa ran out of questions. It's something none of us anticipated. Anyway, we've got some more people asking questions though, so it's wonderful. The next question comes from Kamalia Bovchenko. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Wait 1 second. I think Julia has a follow-up question to the Parisa's question. If there are so many people, then my answers will be answered. And I will translate that to, if there are so many people in the class and I have questions, how can I then get answers? And the answer is, trust I'm guided. Like, well, there's actually a better answer in the sense of just use your power as an infinite being and project your questions in my head and you will get an answer right away. And I know that you can. Well, at least Julia, but I know everybody can if they are willing to do their magic and use their power. I don't think, like, I can't imagine the reality where somebody leaves the class and says, well, I had a question. I was willing to ask it. I raised my hand. I wrote it in the chat, but everybody ignored me. That is very, very unlikely.
Beautiful follow-on question. Wonderful. I love a follow-on question which invites you to talk a little bit more about the magic. I like that side of things. So, a question from Kamilia Bovchenko. It's a juicy one, Bjorn. Strap yourself in. How do you resolve deep shame of being yourself? This has always prevented me to become all that I could be.
Yes. It is a wonderful question for a call like this. Thank you for your vulnerability. And don't worry about my hands. Shame is a divine being hating itself. shame is the biggest lie that there is, in the sense of a divine being considering itself as broken, in the sense of it would be better not to be here because I'm a disgrace. And shame is very powerful in the sense of putting us down. So the question that I would like to ask you, not in the sense of give me an answer, but in the sense of to be with, is it yours? Or where did you buy that from? And everything that you took on as yours, I invite you to let it go. Everywhere where you bought into the reality of your mother in order to connect with her and in order to save her, I invite you to just let it go. And I invite you to just ask questions. As we talked about it, hey universe, what does it take to find the love for myself? As love is the antidote to shame, yet it seems impossible for the mind. Yet, if you ask that question, what would it take to find the love for myself? You might go through an experience of, for example, intense night sweats. Just know if that happens, you're progressing. It's not about the mind. It is about allowing the body to let something go that was with the body for a very, very long time. But it was never yours. Just a lie, trying to attach yourself to yourself. And when you be with that, there might be interesting things coming up. Like, okay, but what if I then lose the connection to my mother? What if I then lose myself? As I know this is the only way to be. And those questions are just distractions. Like, allow them to be. There is no answer. What would it take to embrace myself in love? Hey universe, support me please. What does it take? And feel free to let me know how it goes.
Delicious. The question and the response. Thank you, both of you. Next question. From Mikhail Abai, which says, the biggest obstacle to exploring and trusting our limitless power must be trauma. What is your best way of dealing with trauma?
Letting it go. Well, okay. There is a point of view in the realm of psychology that in order to process a trauma, we have to relive it. From my point of view, that is a very interesting point of view. When we look at what trauma actually is there's a moment that we can't deal with in this moment. And therefore, we just take everything that is attached to that and push it away. Push it away into our subconscious, push it away into our body memory, and there it stays. And trauma is a big word, but trauma happens all the time. Whenever you feel unloved, whenever you feel neglected, whenever you feel not good enough. There might be a little trauma that is created. And we don't have to pretend that it is so powerful that we just have to worry. No, our bodies know what to do with it. For example, breathing is always a beautiful release of small traumas. Or breath work is always a beautiful release of deep traumas that are ready to go. The big thing about traumas is having when you have a lot of trauma and you're dealing with that, the words coming faster. There's a saying, if you wish to cut a tree, some people would spend 4 hours sharpening the axe and then start cutting the tree, and others would just start cutting the tree with a damp axe. So if you would like to sharpen your axe with respect to trauma, it is befriend your ego to know that it can deal with way more than it thinks it can deal with. Because the essence of trauma is ego can't deal with that in that moment, therefore is scared of dying and pushes it away. Especially as children. And when we allow our ego to know that it doesn't kill us, because we are stronger than we think we are grown up, we are able to look at things. Letting trauma go can be as easy as just relaxing into it, relaxing in breathing, or relaxing in workout, for example. What would it take for you to have total ease with letting go all of your traumas and processing them without having to relive them? What would it take to let go of the story that you have to relive your traumas? Yes, no more words on that. It's a good question, though. Like, it's a good question. Trauma is a big topic because, like, we talked about manifesting. That means, okay, we have a conscious mind, and if we focus a conscious mind, we can see how powerful it is just to have a focused conscious mind. So now we have a trauma. The trauma is suppressed. We get an inkling about it, a feeling, we know something is not right, and it is there in our unconscious mind. And the beauty is that trauma creates. And why do I say beauty? Because that trauma all the time creates circumstances that we can use in order to process a part of the hidden trauma. That is not very nice. For example, let's say our trauma is an abuse that we repressed in a way that we just can't look at it. We will constantly create abuse in our reality. And every time when we just breathe through abuse that is happening in that moment, when we just say interesting point of view, and I know I am more powerful than the abuser, and therefore I don't have to take anything on from that shit, our trauma diminishes. The trauma that is hiding and creating it diminishes. That is the beauty of the mirror reality. Everything is just there for us. Doesn't create a very enjoyable reality, though, being constantly beaten down by abuse.
Breathtaking, breathtaking. I love this take. How trauma is its own tool for dissolving itself, essentially. And I think that's wonderful. It's such a beautiful way to understand it, and such an empowering way to understand it.
Yes. Is it the mind that is healing? It is a communion. Like, imagine for a moment, the God self, the higher self, has a blueprint of a perfect being. Like, this is how everything is supposed to be. The body just carries everything. It carries all the altercations, all the trauma as part of the cell. The body is also like the prism that creates our reality. So it is basically the healing happens in the body, but the healing happens guided through the experiencer, not the mind in the sense of thinking, the experiencer in the sense of being the story, in the sense of that can contract or relax. And the relaxing of the experiencer allows the trauma to dissolve. Not sure if that brought clarity or confused more, but well.
What else is possible, hey?
How can I tell the difference between suppressing it and letting it go? Well, if you're suppressing it, that's still there tomorrow. And if you let it go, it's gone.
The simplicity of that is fantastic.
So you look away when someone gets abused. You don't act. No, not at all. I am in this game to play. And if an act of abuse is put into my reality, I know it is there in order to facilitate. Facilitate what? I will know in the moment. But what I don't do is buy into the victim story of somebody who is abused, because I know that there is a different reality happening. From my point of view, abuse is what is happening when there is one unconscious being that is kind of limited and one powerful being, and that unconscious being is trying to prove his power, his potency, by pushing his will onto the more powerful being. And the more powerful being, beyond this reality, usually allows that to happen. And that doesn't say it's right, and that doesn't say it's wrong. It's just when a victim of abuse realizes that they chose that abuse in that moment, for example, in order to protect other beings, sometimes even in order to protect the abuser, they realize that they have the power. It moves them from this happened to me and I can't do anything about it to, that is an interesting reality that I created. And I wonder what it takes to let that go now. And what it takes to let that go in that moment is just the realization that they never were the victim that they thought they are.
Wonderful. We're getting into the nice deep stuff at the end of the conversation. I'm loving the stamina you guys have for asking wonderful questions. It's awe-inspiring to say the least. And they're not getting any more shadow here, Bjorn, so let's keep strapped in. I have a question in the Q&A section from Carlos Lopez, who says, we live in a dual world. Can you explain what non-duality is for you?
No, I can't explain it, but I will give you a pointer or an example. Duality is a world of opposites. For example, in order to understand warmth, you have to understand cold, or you have to have the different experiences in order to get it. Darkness and light are very similar. You can't understand one of these concepts without the other. And for example, when we look at femininity and masculinity, they are both concepts that are dual, that are different, that are created in a way to trigger each other and to seem opposite, to seem difficult, to seem confusing. Yet when we move away from that, we can realize that there is a dance between them, that they are not different and not separate, but that they are coming together like bricks of Lego, in the sense of when we use them together, when we look at them together, it creates a whole, a new thing that has another layer of complexity that we now can look at and enjoy. So non-duality, on the one hand, is the realization that everything is one. But that is very abstract. It also means that everything is connected. Yeah, but what does that mean? It means that everything that we look at is just another layer of story. Because in the end, in non-duality, the only story that survives is, okay, there's consciousness. Consciousness seeking to experience itself. In non-duality, there's nothing to experience. And therefore, there's also, non-duality is not better than duality. It is a door into using powers beyond this reality in order to play with this reality, yes. But the gift to consciousness is in this reality. Sometimes I feel today like I sound like one of those people pretending to be wise by just saying very confusing stuff. But I give you what is coming through in the moment, and I assume a few of you will find value in it.
That's hilarious, by the way. And I think you're being hard on yourself because you're a very humble, lovely person. But from my point of view, at least, you sound wise, and I know you to be wise. So everything feels perfectly aligned, brother. Okay, we've got the chat popping off with some more questions. I'm just going to address the ones that are in the Q&A to complete these ones over here. So Minar Parsley has 2 points. The first one, a quick one to address, I think. I am new to your work, very inspiring. Have you got a guided meditation?
I have no guided meditation at this moment in time.
No. I think the probably collective response from Björn and the team is that's a fantastic idea. We'll be back to you soon, not too distant future. Who knows? Keep an eye out, but it's not immediately available right now.
Yes, please write a list of topics that you would like to have guided meditations on, and I'm very happy to create a few.
Outstanding. And Demir, could you pop our the info email address just into the chat, please, so people can pop those over? Superb idea. Love that. Okay, thank you, Minar, for being the catalyst for that wonder. And Minar has a question here, another question. So Minar writes, I don't know how to answer this question. What will it take to ... Can you please give me an example? Do you understand? Have I read that clearly? Or am I just confusing the life out of you right now in a moment where it's not?
I think I understand. You don't. Okay. Now, yes, I see. Questions. We have learned in school that the reason for question is answers, in the sense of when you are in school and the teacher asks a question, if you know the answer, you are right. And if you don't know the answer, you are wrong. From my point of view, that is just an abuse of questions. I can see the reason why they're doing it that way. But from my point of view, questions are way more powerful than that, because questions open possibilities. A few of my favorite questions are, what else is possible and how does it get any better than that? And what would it take to whatever? And the point is not that I'm asking myself. The point is not that I'm asking anything where I assume that they have the answer, but I'm basically playing a game with the universe in the sense of, here's a question, now show me. And what would it take to anything is the invitation to the universe to show me what it would take. And it might, yeah, I don't feel like constructing an example here. It might lead me on the path to get there. It might just drop it into my lap. For example, a question that I like also ask the universe is, universe, please thoroughly surprise me to get today. And I could formulate that differently in the sense of, what would it take to be completely surprised today? And the universe usually likes to engage with that game, and then surprise happens. I like surprises. I am a certified access consciousness facilitator. Yes. I'm not sure if so much of this webinar is access consciousness, but I share a lot of views with Dane.
Super. So jump over to the Q&A section again. I know with the chat is popping off, there's activity absolutely everywhere right now. And the wonderful Fadi Dega, someone I know very well, lovely to have you with us, Fadi, posted his question 35 minutes ago. He's been patiently waiting. So here we go. Hey, brothers. Nice Fadi style energy at the beginning there. Hey, brothers. I notice the mind-body construct, Fadi, playing the game of trying to get enlightened and figure out who I am. What would it take for me to fully realize myself and reside in who/what I am? What would it take for me not to play the game of forgetfulness and identifying with the mind-body construct, and not identifying with the character in the game, but rather the actor?
That are wonderful questions. I would invite you to be with those questions and trust that you know. Like, the urge that is coming up for me is to point you back to yourself. Stop looking for answers in others. Stop looking for answers in teachings. Stop looking for answers in wisdom of other people. And relax. Relaxation is very powerful. The story of the gateless gate is that once you've passed it and you turn around, you realize it was never there. And there's so much truth in that difficulties are just in our mind. What if you could relax into being what you're asking for? And what if it looks completely different than you think it should look? That's all I have for you, Fadi, right now. I know you're looking for something else, but I'm still outside of you.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I'm reminded of a wonderful quote in this moment. She says something along the lines of, enlightenment is simple, don't look that way, look this way. All about looking inwards rather than anywhere outside. And it's very beautiful. So and I love the way you closed that as well. It's just hilarious. Superb. Thank you for the question, Fadi. Much appreciated. We have another question. This is the final one of the Q&A space. And it's from the wonderful Danielle Bayens, who I have had the pleasure of meeting in the past over the phone, having a wonderful conversation, super human being. And the question goes a little something like this. Can we ever be egocentric when we know that we are part of the bigger picture, whether we believe it or not? Does not every thought we think and every feeling we feel influence the quantum field? The acorn carries in it the blueprint of the magnificent tree it will become. Do we carry the blueprint of God, as we are made of star stuff? Would love your view on this, Bjorn. And they said, sorry, I've just discovered the Q&A is in a separate section. Thank you, Bjorn. Did you get the question?
Yes.
Super.
Can we ever be egocentric? When we realize that everything is connected and we are one, we can also realize that whatever works for us, whatever is right for us, I don't like right, but whatever is most constructive for us is also most constructive for everybody else, as long as you do not have the intention of putting anybody down. And it is interesting because that question is very much connected to, can I ever be selfless? And the challenge in the kingdom of we, in the realization that we are all connected, and whatever is the most constructive path for one is the most constructive path for all, not in the sense they have to do the same, but they benefit the most, is the more common non-aligned behavior is that we forget to include ourselves in the equation, in the sense of that we choose a path that seems to be the best for everybody except us. And with respect to that, it is more productive to look at only us than it is to neglect us. Can we ever be truly selfish? Yes, we can. But that requires the intention to neglect or harm another. Selfish in the sense of, if I do what is aligned for me, that is not selfish. That is just productive. Does that answer the question? I think it does.
Now we just have one entry in Q&A now, and then I'm going to go through the chats. There were some questions here, but this isn't a question. It's an invitation that Mikhail Bai has for us in the group. So it reads, not a question, but I would love to invite you all to join in on manifesting a world full of food forests, self-sustainable ecosystems of food plants. The more I think about it, the more it seems incredibly important. I think that's wonderful. I think it'd be delicious just to walk down the street and pick my dinner from the tree as I'm walking past it. That sounds outstanding. What a reality. I'm joining you on that personally, Mikhail. It's a beautiful suggestion. Thank you. So we have some more questions over here. Let me move over. Okay, so I think this was the last unanswered one. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to catch up in the side here. Here we go. Super. Okay, so how many times is he going to say okay so before he actually gets to it? How many different ways did he have to buy himself time as he's unprepared? So we have a question from Angelina Lev. Perhaps you are still on the call, perhaps. Oh, yes, I see you are still here. Wonderful. The question is, how do we let go of fear and the sense of limitation, smallness, and helplessness?
Well, how to let go of fear? Fear is something that is implanted in order to keep us from our greatness. So if you have a fear that you are able to actually look at, the question I invite you to ask is, what potency am I not embracing with that? And it seems counterintuitive, yes. Try it. Try it like I tried manifestation a long time ago and see what happens to your fear. So then there was smallness and something else, Nick.
Let me take myself off mute quickly. It was, how do we let go of fear, a sense of limitation, smallness, and helplessness?
Yes, it's all learned. Learned in the sense of taking on, like, when you are a very small child, you take on the projections of your parents and see them as a reality. Small, being limited, being helpless is all coming from there. And how do you let it go? Well, it's a choice, but it's not like the question is wonderful. What is required is a proper conversation in the sense of, okay, give me an example. Okay, let's work through that. And that is not something that is going to happen on this call. But the thing that I would like to point you to is young childhood, and ask the question, what would it take to let this go? What would it take to let this go? What would it take to let this go? The tool that I introduced in the sense of ask, and demand, staying present, is very, very powerful. And there's like, I'm a coach, yes. I really see the value in coaching, yes. Is it required? No. It often just makes the process easier. You have a playing partner, and that is the universe. And when you're willing to be conscious, nothing is required.
Superb. I think we are about to touch on the very last question that I have here, which is from Angelina Lev. Again, this question was posted about 20 minutes ago. Can we heal the body and perform miracles of healing as Jesus did?
Can we do miracles as Jesus did? What does it actually mean? The thing is, we are powerful beings, and we create a reality by our choices. Miracles happen all the time, which afterwards are called misdiagnosis. Well, basically, the later doctor will tell you, well, obviously we did make a mistake before, because that is impossible. But the question is, why did we create the sickness, the misformation of the body, whatever, in the first place? And when we let go of that reason, like from my point of view, it's not a miracle, it's just a natural consequence, in the sense of, okay, if the body has a reason to act out, let me say it like that way, because that is the way that it is perceived, and we remove the reason, the body doesn't have a reason to act out anymore, and naturally it stops. The thing is, in this reality, many people just ignore their body. And the body is a powerful tool, yes, but also a very powerful antenna. We are used to using our eyes to see, and our ears to hear, and our nose to smell, but it has so much more information if we are willing to perceive it. It has so many insights, and it has so little judgments, that oftentimes the body just has something to share. But if we ignore the body, well, it has a way of, it can make us listen. And that making us listen is often perceived as a sickness or something else. But being willing to listen can change a lot. Can we create miracles as Jesus did? Well, the question is, did he create miracles, or was he a space where that person realized that they are choosing something strange? And being that space is something that is very much available for us. Knowing powerful questions, like if somebody seems to be dying, just asking the question, what are you dying to get out of? And watch them realize what they are dying to get out of can be a very powerful experience. Being then with them, seeing them realize that they are still choosing to die to get out of it, is also a powerful experience. Death is not bad. Death is not the end of anything. It is as much the end as it is the beginning. A lot of suffering that happens in the end of our lives is a being clinging to the reality of other people who cannot let that being go. While that being that is close to death is in front of the most beautiful transformation that is available, and that is returning back to full oneness. What a wonderful way to end this call if you don't have any other questions.
Yes, wonderful. There is one more question, however, from the magical Danielle. I want to sit in the space of what you just said for a moment. And Danielle, in the chat on the right, she just encompassed and quoted the part which landed for me. What are you dying to get out of? I mean, there's real power there. Thank you. So Danielle has a question in our Q&A section. The question is as follows. Would selfishness have acquired a distorted connotation? Could it be, as I understand from the answer, the courage to work on ourselves, to become the example and the invitation? Did I understand this correctly? Thank you for the extra clarification.
Can you read this again, please?
Yes. Would selfishness have acquired a distorted connotation? So are we perceiving selfishness generally?
Yes.
You with me, yeah?
I get it. Yes, absolutely. Like, imagine yourself as a child. Assuming that you're not an only child, you're taught to take care of the other first. Like, you can't be selfish because then you're wrong. And there's a lot of pain in that. Being made wrong by our parents, being judged by our parents is a core source of so many struggles later, because we learn that we have to judge ourselves correctly and then we will improve. No. Internal world first implies selfishness. Knowing what yourself require first implies selfishness. Let me give you another example, something that is very common in relationships. Two people happen to be in a relationship and everybody guesses what the other requires in order to feel validated. So they get out of their way in order to not be themselves, but give the other something where they have no idea about it because they didn't ask. It's very common. So what would happen in any relationship where you are willing to be yourself first and not go into the assumptions what the other requires, but allow yourself the space to be you fully and allow the other to be the space, to be the space for the other, allow to be the space for the other, to allow the other to be themselves first. And that is the state when two people find each other in a relationship. That is at the beginning when everything is excited and wonderful. That is when we allow ourselves to be us and we adore the other because they allow themselves to be them. When we start to realize, no, can't be selfish. I have to take care of the other. I have to do them favors. I have to pretend that I'm different because I have a conclusion that if I be that way, then they like me more. That is when all the challenges in relationships are created.
Imagine coming into the end of that answer and all you hear is, and that is when all the challenges in relationships are created. How much would you want to hear what went before that those final few words? Outstanding. And yes, we are complete with our questions. First thing to acknowledge is the quantity and the quality of questions that you guys have put forward and shared today has been outstanding. Like, as you see, we had an idea of a certain direction, but the call, from my perspective at least, has been this phenomenal co-creation. It couldn't have been the same if even one of us wasn't here. So outstanding. And there was a beautiful comment from Robert Dallas in the chat, which is not to assume or project too much, but for anyone wanting to know what the workshop is like, this is a tiny example. When we are all in the workshop, our intent will magnify our understanding, and the next powerful piece of the shift for this planetary shift, exponentially. I think I get that. Today is a huge step in that direction in itself. From my heart, thanks to all for your openness. Delightful message, Robert. It touches on something there which is really pertinent, and that is that, yes, this has been a powerful conversation, but the experience that we'll have together in the Being You as God workshop in a couple of weeks' time is going to be this exponentially magnified, and that's going to be a wonderful thing. So I just wanted to highlight that because that is so on the money. Bjorn, we've asked you about 10 million questions today, so I'm not sure if you've got any words or you've run out for the day. We might have to come back tomorrow for the next answer. But all that nonsense aside, let me ask you, is there anything else that you would like to say or share in this moment that the current questions so far haven't given you the space to say or share?
Yes, I'm surprising myself because I also feel like I've talked a lot. And I am an introvert and don't like talking, but there's something that I would like to say. Thank you for being here. And if you could just close your eyes for one moment, be in your body for one moment and receive that. Thank you for being here, not on this webinar, but on this planet at this time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for playing this wonderful game at this moment in time. Thank you for allowing you to embrace your greatness. Thank you for connecting with your soul on this beautiful path. Thank you for embracing the struggle, the pain, whatever is coming up, in the steps that are required to figure out, or embrace your gift, your greatness. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Stunning. Thank you so much. And for your time this evening, it's been beautiful. So, guys, you will receive an email right after this call with a bit of information in there. You'll then receive a second email tomorrow with the recording of this, so you guys can catch up. So keep an eye on the inbox over the next 24 to 48 hours. If you know somebody that you feel would connect with what we discussed in here, what Bjorn shared in here, please feel free to share on. That would be a wonderful thing. And of course, let us know if you have any questions or queries or anything. Demir, if you could pop the email address in the chat again, please, that would be amazing. And perhaps the 2 links to the 2 tools, that would also be fantastic. So 3 links that are going in the chat now, guys. If you'd like to suggest a guided meditation for Björn to record, as was one of the wonderful suggestions earlier, please pop an email to info@bjornlenz.com, and we will work hard to get those created. And again, if you have any other questions, comments, or anything about anything that's occurred this evening, then do feel free to reach out by email. And for those of you really looking to embrace, embody everything that we've explored here, the 2 links for the tools are in the chat now as well. So again, we have the study companion, ideal accompaniment for the book if you're going through it. And if you really want to connect with Björn at the deepest level and understand what that looks like and see the shifts there, we have the Being You as God class. Both of those links will be in the email we send out this evening. So I think that's enough from us. I think we are complete. Yeah. Outstanding. Well,
Good.
guys, thank you. See you very soon.